So there is something that I want to talk about today, and I think it's very, very important to the future of metabolic health. And some of the stuff you may have heard, and some of the stuff I know you haven't. But metabolic syndrome, we kind of define that as a list of numbers like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, waist to height ratio, low HDL, high triglycerides. But I want to challenge that because I want to add elevated fasting levels, elevated fasting insulin levels, and elevated uric acid levels, and elevated inflammation markers. Now, today I'm going to share with you a way of rethinking metabolic syndrome, and I call it the root cause model because when you understand the real drivers, you can finally see a path out of this mess. So the unfortunate thing is that we've been kind of misled in metabolic syndrome and total health for that matter. So what we've been told versus what's been happening is huge. And the standard in metabolic syndrome is like a checklist. If you fit 3 out of the 5 markers, you're diagnosed. But here's the problem. By the time you check those boxes, the damage has already been happening for years. Think of it as like smoke alarms. If all the smoke alarms are going off, don't say, well, I guess the problem is just the alarms. The problem is the fire. Okay, so metabolic syndrome is a fire, a deep disruption of how your body handles energy, how it handles inflammation, and how it regulates growth and repair. The checklist is just the alarms going off. Now, all of these factors that are included in metabolic syndrome tie into each other, and you need to understand how each and every one of them work. Okay, so my reframing, the real driver. So let's strip it down to the root causes. Here's how I reinvented the way we think about metabolic metabolic syndrome. Insulin resistance, and that's when your cells stop responding properly to insulin. That's the key that should let glucose into the cell. When the key doesn't fit anymore, your body makes more and more insulin to try to force it in there. That extra insulin drives fat storage because insulin is a fat storage hormone. Blood pressure, hunger signals, all these are elevated, right? So chronic inflammation, low-grade persistent inflammation acts like rust in your system. It stiffens your arteries, it damages joints, interferes with your hormones, and it even clouds the brain. Mitochondrial dysfunction. Your energy factories stop running smoothly because less efficient energy, more free radicals, more fatigue, and more cellular damage occur because of mitochondrial dysfunction. Toxic load, uric acid, and byproducts. This is the one that almost nobody talks about. Excessive uric acid, advanced glycation end products, AGEs, oxidized fats, they gum up your system. So elevated uric acid isn't particularly just gout. It's tied to high blood pressure, insulin resistance, and fatty liver. I know that there's a lot of people that have problems with gout, myself included. And I didn't understand it for a long time because your doctors tell you, well, gout is just you're eating too much this, too much that. Usually with shellfish and red meat, but that's really, really not the point, and it's not the solution. So that's why I want to kind of get you, and I will do more videos specifically on that. You just need to understand it. And another source is poor metabolic flexibility, which means that your body has lost the ability to switch between burning carbs and fat. Historically, we're supposed to be burning fat, but that's another thing that I'll get into. But nowadays, the carbohydrates are at such a they're available everywhere, so it's easy to just the foods of convenience. You can go to a 7-Eleven, fast food, and they're all loaded with carbs. And instead, you're stuck in sugar burning mode, hungry for hours, never able to tap into your stored energy. Now, these 5, not the checklist, are the true pillars of metabolic syndrome. The high blood pressure, the cholesterol, the blood sugar, those are just the smoke. These are the flames, and this is why it matters. Okay, so why should you care? Metabolic syndrome is the foundation of nearly every modern disease. Diabetes, heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, these all sit on the foundation. Excuse me. Now here's the part that should wake you up. Half of US adults have already some degree of metabolic syndrome. Many don't know it because their labs are still in the normal range. But just because you don't show outward symptoms, it doesn't mean the process isn't happening under the hood. One of the analogies that I like to use is the flat tire versus slow leak, damaged rim. So like diagnosing diabetes 20 years too late is like saying, well, you know what, I've had that slow leak in my tire and my rims are damaged, so there must be something wrong. It's already too little too late. Okay, so the false sense of security. Some people eat junk food every day and don't gain weight. They think they're fine because there's this false sense of security. Weight gain is just one symptom of insulin resistance. Some people aren't going to gain weight. If you are gaining weight, but you're spiking insulin, building uric acid, driving inflammation, the damage is already happening. And here's the kicker. The state that we're in now is not just from what we eat today. It's generations of poor diet, even during pregnancy. It's being passed down by generation and generation. And here's a fact. At the turn of the 20th century, there was only a handful of cardiologists. And if you can imagine that, there was cardiovascular disease was almost unheard of back then. And that's why some kids struggle with obesity or metabolic issues at such a young age today, because it's been generations and generations of building up insulin resistance and eating improperly and eating not ancestrally consistently. Well, the good news is this is reversible. If you attack the root causes, if you lower your insulin, you clear your uric acid, you reduce inflammation, support mitochondrial health, and rebuild metabolic flexibility, you can put out the fire, not just silence the alarms. Now, here's what true health looks like. Not just chasing good numbers on a lab test, but restoring how your body was designed to function. In my next video, I'll zero in on uric acid, because uric acid isn't just about gout. It's about the missing piece of the metabolic syndrome puzzle, and it's one of the biggest levers that you can pull for optimum health. So if any of this has clicked with you, don't wait until your smoke alarms are blaring. Start thinking differently about metabolic syndrome. Take back control at the root. And this is the beginning of a series where I'll show you how to rebuild your metabolic health from the inside out. Subscribe regularly, stop chasing symptoms, and start building resilience. Okay, so here's to the path of better health for generations to come. Thanks for watching.